I'm no good at dealing with grief. I have my pre-programmed emotionally detached knee-jerk response when I receive sad news, so I can usually keep myself calm and composed. But after a few days, grief eventually and certainly catches up. And that's why for the past week or so, days haven't been completely happy. I think I know how to grieve, but what I don't know is how to grieve well. And I know they say there are 5 stages of grief: denial to acceptance. But what they didn't tell me is that it doesn't always stop at acceptance. In a lot of cases, it loops back to denial. I don't know about you, but to me, grief is one of those things that can forcefully put life into perspective. I can definitely do without it, but we live our entire lives with the certainty of grief. Most people manage to sweep it under the carpet and deal with it when it happens. Some kind of a let's cross a bridge when we get there state of mind. But it's just not the case for me. Ever since I understood the concept of death, I have been grieving my loved ones in silence, even while they're still alive. And the problem is that grief is inevitable. If I love, then I will grieve. It's unavoidable. And instead of trying to shield myself from grief, I'd rather grieve well. If I love well, then it's possible to grieve well. To grieve without regrets or guilt. Every life starts like a sunrise. You know, the sun comes up and signals a new day, gives you the warm fuzzy feels. And it's like a punctuation mark right at the start of a lifelong statement. And then every life ends like a sunset. The sun goes down and signals the end of the day. It's a way of letting us know it's time to rest our weary heads. And it's also a punctuation mark at the very end of a lifelong statement. And then there's that time in between. Some days are long, some days are short. However long our day ends up being, it's completely ours to fill with as many punctuation marks as we can. My grandfather turned 90 in May this year. 7 children, 21 grandchildren, 13 great-grandchildren, and 2 great-great-grandchildren. And a number of days ago, he passed away and walked into a sunset. For the best part of the last decade, he was yearning for that sunset. He was totally ready to finally cross the finish line. And in my eyes, he was a man at peace with his fate. His life was punctuated with generosity. He was abundantly generous to his children, to us, his grandchildren, to the neighbor, even to the stranger. He lived with so much generosity to the point that the neighbor and a stranger became family. During the past number of days of his wake, I've been introduced to a lot of people who were unrelated at first, but who have grown to consider my grandfather as their own grandfather as well, just because he has been so generous and hospitable to them. To me, it looked like he treated everyone as family. And from my first-hand experience, I can say that he profoundly loved his. About a decade ago, he went into a coma and the doctors thought he wouldn't make it. Miraculously, he woke up. I'm thankful that my siblings and I went back to the Philippines to see him then. We were there for his 80th birthday and celebrated him while he can still hear our words. I believe eulogies are best said while our loved ones are still alive to hear them. We were able to bring him to places that he had always wanted to go to. We got to spend some time with him and enjoy his presence, his company. My grandfather believed in Jesus Christ, and up until his last breath, he punctuated his twilight hours with hope. And so as my entire family and I grieve my grandfather's passing, I'd like to honor him for the way he loved so generously and for how he clung to hope so tirelessly. His journey this side of eternity may have ended, but we honor him by living on with our own journeys, bearing his legacy of faith and devotion to family. And I think that's how I'll honor him, by living with the same generosity and with the same hope that he did. I guess this serves as my personal monument for him, for all the good and godly things he lived for all the good and godly things that he's trusting us to live for on his behalf. My hope is that when our kids watch this, even though they will never meet their great-granddad in person but hear of our stories about him, they would also be compelled to live life in boundless generosity and unwavering hope. My grief hasn't completely sunk in yet. I've wept a number of times, mostly while driving, and I find that grief has a way of showing up when least expected. I feel that I still have a lot of grief to deal with, but I will deal with it. If any of your grandparents are still alive, please shower them with love. If you still have your parents, go hug them tight. Let them know you love them every single chance you get. Life is too short to be saving regrets for yourself. If you know someone grieving at this moment, and as long as you are willing, please lend them the gift of your peaceful presence. Believe me when I say it goes a long way. And if you are grieving at this point, don't bear your grief on your own. Reach out. Certainly there's someone who wouldn't think twice to offer both of their shoulders for you to cry on. Go on, grieve, but please don't do it alone. Do it well. And so wherever you find yourself going, whatever you find yourself doing, I hope you get to live life to the fullest. stay safe.